What's up, guys? It's me, Mr. Carter, back again with another video. You already know what to do. Hit that like button, smash the notification bell, and you know what? Why don't you subscribe too? Okay? Support my YouTube career. Help me blow up. All right. I hope you guys are having a great day. Hope everything's going well for you. Excuse me. And I'm coming at you with a really weird lesson. Okay? It's weird. All right? So we've been talking about the Crusades. Now, I really want to kind of take a side note here. And I want to talk about like the religious mania of the time period. All right, what do you think that means, mania? Like if I said, superhero mania, what do you think that means? Or you could call someone manic. You ever heard that before? They're acting manic. It really refers to this idea of like an obsession or something gone wild, okay? So in the 1960s, you guys know about the Beatles. There was a movement called Beatles mania, where everyone was just obsessed with the Beatles. There was Beatles toys, Beatles this, Beatles that. Everything was the Beatles. All right? Today is superheroes, right? Superheroes are everywhere. Superhero mania. What was it in the Middle Ages? Well, really what drives much of life in the Middle Ages, like we've talked about, is religion. But it's not just normal Christianity, okay, or normal Catholicism. This is an extreme manic form of Christianity, one that justifies really weird practices that border on, it's really kind of roots of pagan superstition mixed with Christianity. We're going to talk about some of it today. Buckle up. I'm telling you, it's going to be odd. Starting off, all right, in your notes, make a new section. It's kind of in the Crusades, so understand that like we're not stopping the Crusades. We're kind of just like a side note. Why don't you make a new section? Religious mania. All right, religious mania. Number 1 point. All right, first bullet point. Religion heavily influenced everyday life. Almost everything that a person did, they would think about the religious implications of, which I mean is not totally bad. I think as Christians, we should be thinking, all right, what are my actions doing right now for the gospel? Am I spreading the gospel? I think that's good. But is there a world in which you could take it too far, where now everything has some kind of religious significance? If I get a parking spot, that's a good spot. I don't think God is blessing me with a spot. I don't pray for a parking spot. But in the Middle Ages, they would say that's God. God gave you that spot. So I want you to be thinking about this, right? I mean, there are worlds in which people can take religion too far and almost kind of make it extreme in a way that it wasn't supposed to be. I think that was definitely happening in the Middle Ages. There was this idea that in the medieval times, angels and heavenly beings could still appear physically to people like they did in the Old Testament. So I want you to write that down really quick. Many people believed that angels and demons could physically manifest themselves. All right, now look, this gets into a little bit of a theological debate, right? Theological meaning, religious studies. I'm not really trying to comment on whether or not angels still appear to people, but I would say that, like, I tend to kind of think that they don't because we now have Christ. I don't think angels really need to appear in the same way because God's word has been revealed and we have it, thank the Lord, but I could be wrong, obviously, I'm just a guy. But back then, there was a belief that, like, if you saw something in your room, it's probably a demon. A demon's coming to get you, okay? People were so, they hung on every word of their priest in their bishops that they, religion just became something that was ever present and it affected everything. Your crops didn't grow, it's probably God punishing you. What did you do wrong? Right? What did you do that made him mad? I told you that weird story about Martin Luther, where he wrote down that like the devil came down his chimney and he pooped in a butter churn. I don't know if you guys remember this. Really weird. Okay, like in any other time period, he would read that out loud and people would go, "What's wrong with you? Why did you poop in the butter churn?" But in medieval times, you're like, "Oh yes, poop in the butter." But yeah, that's what you need to do to get rid of him. They just think that that's like totally normal. Obviously, it's not. Okay. All right. So how does this relate to the Crusades? It actually relates a lot because religious mania is one of the main things that drives the Crusades. So I want you to write down underneath that. Okay. Extreme faith in Christianity in the church drove the Crusades to happen. You ever had one of these? You know what this is? It's a beaver nugget from Buc-ee's. You ever go to Buc-ee's? It's good stuff. You gotta get a beaver nugget. Sorry, beaver nugget break. Put that up there. All right, break over. So, let's talk about child prophets. All right, so kids say weird stuff. They say weird things. Is it good to take everything that a kid says as 100% truth? Probably not. I'm sure my daughter will say really weird stuff. She'll come to me like, "Dad, yes, I'm a horse." I'm not going to go, "You are? Here's some grass. Eat this grass." I'm not going to do that, right? Or have an apple in my hand and try to feed it to her. I'm not going to do that. All right, so you got to take what kids say with a grain of salt. Kids are also reflective of their parents. So, for example, I remember my dad he does a lot of 2D animation. When I was a kid, he animated a lot of stuff for movies and work and all that kind of stuff. So I always said that I wanted to be an animator, okay? Obviously, I'm not. I'm not nearly that talented in that sense. But kids are reflections of that. So if everyone is really manic about religion and everyone's talking about Christianity, aren't the kids? Yeah. Okay, now, there's like this weird thing that happens in especially religious circles, and you guys may have seen this. There are children that almost get like deified. All right, here's what I mean by that. There are children that are like worshipped. I'm pretty sure there are like Hindu kids who are worshipped. A lot of think about baby Jesus. Actually, that's a perfect example. Why are we so fixated on this idea of specifically baby Jesus? Why not like preteen Jesus? Infant Jesus. It's kind of weird. The idea of like deity being a baby or a small child, right? Something totally innocent. So let's say that you have a child, right? And they come in and they say, "Dad, yes, I saw Jesus." All right, now if that was today, I would say, "You saw Jesus? Where was he? Can you show me where he was?" Walk out there and say, "Okay, well, what did he look like?" And I kind of, and then I'd be like, "Well, look, we can all see Jesus in each other. I mean, Jesus is everywhere. But did Jesus really appear to you?" I try to walk him through it. Back then, if you're like, "Dad, I saw Jesus," he'd be like, "Praise the Lord. It is true you have seen the face of God. We must get you to a church right now so you can testify to the priests that you have been selected as heaven's elect." They would do that. So, stick with me. Let's go with the assumption that my baby sees Jesus. Like literally claims to have seen God. All right. And then I bring my child to the church. By the way, if my child is lying, they die. Okay, they literally have to be killed. Well, is there any way to tell if they're lying or not? No. And so do you risk putting to death God's prophet? Of course not. So most people just go, wow, God is so great, he appeared to this person. All right. Everybody good so far? So in your notes, child prophets. There is a wave of parents claiming their children saw God. All right. It's about to get extremely weird. Okay? This really happened. I'm not making this up. All right. There were people who were like, well, this child got to see God. Obviously, they're like chosen and they're special, right? People are thinking that like these are angel beings being, sent to earth. And so there are people that will pay tons of money to wash the children's feet so that way they could get some of their healing power. Again, they're like treating the children almost as if they are Christ in human form. Got me so far? All right. Do I think it's normal to want to wash a kid's feet? Some kid that you don't know? No. That's weird. Sorry if that's controversial. I think that's kind of odd. All right. You know what's weirder? Trying to buy the child's spit. Yes, that happened. There were parents who were like, yo, there are people who would legitimately buy my kid's saliva because they think that my kid is like from God. So would you sell it? And I want you to think for a second. You could just make stupid money. Think about how hard it was to make money back then. If you're a serf living on somebody else's land, bro, you could buy your own land with that. So parents are like, hey, come here, spit in this jar. And they started selling it. It gets worse. All right. Then they're like, well, what about their poop? And you're like, Mr. Carter, what are we talking about? I'm not making this up. And I really want you to understand that this is how weird things got. The Middle Ages were so weird. There were people who were purchasing children's poop because they thought the poop, if they rubbed themselves in the poop, would cure them of all diseases. Because they would say it's the equivalent of like Christ's poop. And listen, this is a genuine reaction. And I've taught this lesson like so many times throughout the years, but every time I'm just like, how did we get here? Why? Poop seems to come back a lot. Lots of smearing poop. I don't know. They thought it would really heal them. So people are making tons of money off these children prophets. Now we're going to end on this. This is one of the most messed up. It is sad. So there's something called the Children's Crusade. And the idea was that the Lord would protect these children and would guide them to the Middle East by boat so that they could spread the gospel. Now, you're probably like, wait, the Crusades were like a war. Yes, they were. The idea is you basically have so much faith in God that you're going to put all your kids on this boat with by the way, with no navigation. And God is just going to guide them to the shores of, I think of Turkey. I think they're going to like Constantinople. And from there, they'll spread the gospel and they'll be protected because they're child prophets who are selling poop and spit. All right, this is a true story. I think they got maybe 100 children, something like that. They put them on a boat. This is in France, and they're shipping them off. There is the children don't even know how to navigate, okay? They don't know how to sail a boat. And everyone there is just like, praise be, yes, bye kids. They're sailing away. all of a sudden, a big gust of wind comes. It pushes the boat into a rock. I'm not making this up. And the children die. Literally, they made it. It's not funny. They made it like, I don't even know, a matter of feet. Okay? So people are jumping in the water trying to go there. They all die. You might be like, well, surely they're going to be like, God killed them. Like they weren't true prophets. No. They're like, the devil sent that wind. The devil did it. Really what I'm trying to illustrate to you guys is like rational thinking didn't exist. Everything was justified and explained with superstition and religion. Everything had a religious significance, and that leads to child prophets and poop and spit and all kinds of weird stuff. And when we get to the plague, people are covering themselves in butter. I mean, you're like, what? Medieval times were super weird. So, why don't you just say a prayer of gratitude that you don't have to live in the medieval times and sell your poop? And I'm glad for that. All right, on that note, no more talk about poop and spit. I'm peacing out. Have a great day. Don't forget to check what I left for you. Kind of made it sound like I left a poop. I didn't. It's an assignment. Not really an assignment. It's something for you to look at. Have a good day. I'm going to stop talking now. Peace and love. Bye-bye.